So welcome everybody again. So like I said, we do have a bi-weekly special interest group call on the SharePoint framework development, and then we have this second bi-weekly special interest group call around the general SharePoint development. And in here, we do talk about topics like CSAM, provisioning, modernization, end-to-end solution designs, Power Apps in the context of SharePoint, Microsoft Flow in the context of SharePoint, column formatting, view formatting, so everything else in SharePoint development which isn't around SharePoint framework and JavaScript development. So the JavaScript development part is covered in the SharePoint framework one. Now, and then we also have a monthly community calls, which are slightly different, but the next one is actually next week. So that's pretty cool, which will have a cool topic as well, but slightly different schedules and slightly different structure in the calls. Now, today, if I can get my clicker to work, today we'll have first a few kind of recurrent topics. So we're going to go one sliders related on PMP and CSAM core extension, what has happening there, one slider around the PMP PowerShell, a lot of new stuff in both of these because we're releasing the February release actually this weekend, and then updates on the modernization tooling. This is open source tooling helping you to modernize your existing SharePoint deployment. Then we'll have 3 different demos coming up. So first of all, Chris will do his recurrent list formatting tip. I can't remember which one was this one, but I know that it's about war horses most likely. So because that was the picture which I got from Chris last night. And then we'll have Chaks explaining how to create Microsoft flows using SharePoint Online for SharePoint Online using Microsoft Visio. So that is a relatively new capability which has been available added quite recently. And please remember to mute yourself when you're joining, just a reminder, because there's again a background noise on the line. Thank you. Now, and then the final one is AC. Andrew Connell is kind of walking through the process of getting started contributing in a GitHub. This is something which has been asked from us for quite a few times, and we intentionally put it in the community call so we get it also recorded, and then we can release that as a separate video. So basically explaining how do you report issues towards Microsoft SharePoint engineering from a developer platform perspective, and then also how do you submit pull requests related on that one. And I'm going to actually click that one, so we'll get moving on the slides. Now, quickly, reminders on the options on participating. We are all the time looking volunteers doing live demos on these community calls. So you can actually demonstrate your existing sample, your existing solution design, and we can talk about that together with the community. Well, talking basically means that we'll have a chat on the IM window. And then you can always contribute in a GitHub and most importantly, provide feedback. So don't be a stranger. Let us know if something is not working or if there's some issues which you're running into. We need to know about those so we can actually address those issues, which is beneficial for all of us. Now, moving on things, quick reminders on certain, let's say, generic assets, what we're having. So there's a SharePoint DevDocs, AKMSSP DevDocs, official documentation over there, evolving all the time. SharePoint Dev Videos, this is where we release, for example, the recording of this video within the next 24 hours. And please remember to mute yourself when you're joining on these calls. And then SharePoint Dev Issues, AKMSSP Dev Issues. So if you're running into a developer-oriented issue, not an out-of-the-box web part, a developer-oriented issue like an API or SPFX is behaving badly, or something in the SharePoint 2019 API level isn't working properly, please report those using the issue list. Thank you. Now, moving on the recurrent topics before we go to the demo. So PMP CSAM core library, we have some cool updates around this ones, but I'll let Bert actually talk about this. So I will go to the slide in here. So Bert, what's cool? What's new?
Thanks, Vesa. Well, I think the cool thing is SharePoint 2019 support, like we announced last time. But it's really getting close now. We released a new version of the February release of CSAM core. Maybe tomorrow, Monday latest, so it kind of depends a bit on how things go. So, but we have SharePoint 2019 in there, so that's great. Furthermore, I think we had several community contributions that we got merged in this month from Jens around extraction and provisioning of associated groups, Kerberos ADFS support for people on-prem. That is still important, so we have that. Zone ID, I think it's a long-standing ask where we kind of bumped up the version, the minimal version of SharePoint 2016, SharePoint 2013 that we support, which also implies now that we have a more common set of supported methods and properties, including Zone ID. And the major version limit, major with minor version limits, those things as well, they are related to that type of change. So overall, I think a lot of good changes, Vesa. Looking forward for SharePoint 2019, we initially will give you a version that's kind of similar to SharePoint 2016, but using SharePoint 2019 binaries. Next step is lighting up specific features, like, for example, a modern page support. That will take quite a lot of work, but it is on our list of things to do.
Now, quick mentioning related on the new schema support. There's a discussion in our window which I completely answered wrong, because apparently Russell was asking around the PnP Core Online, which the SharePoint PnP Core Online is a CSAM extension. It is not yet the .NET Core version, because we don't have a .NET Core for out-of-the-box CSAM. The out-of-the-box CSAM client-side object model will have a .NET Core version, hopefully by end of this quarter, and we're able to release that out. And that's in the pipeline by end of this quarter. Now, it might be delayed until April to get it out, and then whenever that's available, we can actually release CSAM extensions of PnP CSAM using the Core option as well, targeted for .NET Standard or .NET Core. Yeah.
Actually, we even think to and this is early thinking, but we plan to kind of split the big PnP size core library in different packages, only using core as a library, and then kind of make it more modular and easier to maintain and use. So
yeah,
there's some nice things coming in the future.
Yep. Absolutely. Now, cool. Moving on other things. So PnP PowerShell, I didn't double check. Erwin is on a call. So Erwin, do you want to do a quick intro on this one?
Yeah, sure. So just like Sites Core, we now have initial support for 2019. Don't expect 2019 specific commandlets yet, but we'll work on that in the future. But for now, we support the 2019 CSAM libraries, etc. So a couple of new commandlets. One that got quite some feedback, actually positive feedback on Twitter, was about the design tasks. You might be aware that there is a limitation in site designs with more than actions. And if you schedule it as a task, you can run more than 30 actions. So we now support them too. These are not very unique commandlets. They are already available in the Office 365 management shell, but now we have a PnP equivalent for them too, so you don't have to. If you don't want to install your management shell, you don't have to. And something that was requested actually quite a lot, but now we finally have support for it. If you extract a template from your tenant or from your site collection, you can include the hidden lists if you want to do that with an additional switch. So you get all the ugly hidden lists in your template, and you will most likely want to filter them out and do stuff. But if you want them in your template, they're there now. So that's what we're working on right now. These are already in the dev branch, and they will come out when we release the updated version this weekend. And if you run already the January release, you will see a notification the moment you do a Connect PnP Online when the new version is available.
Yeah, so that was how they got kind of a notification for PnP PowerShell in January release. That's really cool. So excellent. Yeah. Cool. And then moving on to the final kind of a recurrent slide, which is the modernization tooling. So back to Bert on this one.
Yep. Similar like with PowerShell and .NET Sites Core, we will be releasing a new version this weekend. Main things in there are for page transformation is a copy of page metadata. So if you extended the site pages library and added columns with metadata to kind of tag your pages, when you now modernize those pages, we copy over the content. As an optional thing, you have to set a flag to make it happen, but you can do it now. Also, the page transformation did not yet support pages living inside a folder or inside a folder structure. If that's the case now, the page gets transformed and ends up in the same folder. Initially, it ended up in the root of the folder, So that's fixed. And the final thing that we have added is full support for item level permission copying. So if you have specific permissions for a particular page and you modernize the page, by default, the same permission will be applied on the created modern version of the page. Looking into the page transformation UI solution, what's next? So currently it's in beta. So it was released last SIG call, so it's about 2 weeks out now. And we're looking into a V1 where we fix bugs and kind of do some new features. Main things are some tenant level switches to control behavior of the function app. So page transformation as an Azure function app that does all the work. And today you can't really configure it. We'll add some configuration options for you in there. Furthermore, support for pages living in a folder, similar to what we have in the engine, and multilingual and item level permission copying. That are the things for that release target date. I can't give a date yet, but it will at least be still a few weeks out before we release this one. Finally, we have the modernization scanner. Not much happened in that space, just still waiting for the 2.4 release with performance improvements. But I wanted to use this opportunity to also ask you guys, like, what do you need more? We have a scanner, we have a tech to help you modernize pages. Are there other things that you missed? Do you need tech to clean up libraries?
No,
I don't know.
Bert, before you go actually there, can you reiterate what is this modernization tooling all about? Because you didn't actually do that on the slide intro. So just clarify, what is the modernization framework and what does this helping people to do and why they should be interested in it?
Yeah, that's a fair ask. I always tend to just jump into the details. And modernization framework is technology that you can use to take a classic wiki or web page and create a modern version out of it. Because if you would modernize your classic theme site, you can group connect it. Nowadays, by default, you get modern list and libraries, so all looks good and all looks modern, except those, between brackets, ugly wiki pages. And with this technology, you can change those into modern pages. Yeah. That's one part, and then the scanner is more like an all-up scan of your complete tenant, although it can also scan certain site collections, but it will then give you information about how good is your tenant on your sites prepared for modern list and libraries. Can you group connect those sites? Can you modernize pages in the sites? What are things that will work? Which web parts are, for example, on your pages that are not yet ready to be modernized, etc. So there's a ton of data coming out of the scanners that you can then use to make educated decisions around modernization. And all this work has kind of gradually grown over the last months, half year. But meaning, if there are certain things that you miss, if you embark on a modernization project with your company or with your customers, and you need certain things that are not available in either migration tools or from the community, then yeah, let us know. We're open to add more features, add more tools. Yeah, but if you guys have ideas of things that you really need, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Bert, on that one. Now, quick questions on the IO window, because there was two really good questions. So first question was, is this now ready to be used in production, if somebody wants to use this in production?
The page transformation tech, absolutely yes. The UI part is in beta, meaning if you want to use it in beta, it works. Feel free to use it. It is open source though, so it's not, you can't call Microsoft support and say, hey, my page transformation UI solution is not working.
Yep.
But besides that, yeah, feel free to use it. And there's an issue list in the SPDev modernization repository where you can ask questions, provide feedback. Yeah, sure. Yep. What was the other question, Vesa? Because I didn't.
Well, the other question, which was kind of interesting, is what's the difference between this one and comparing to the third-party tooling, which is kind of an interesting discussion.
Actually, third-party tooling will bring you, will kind of move data from on-prem to online, but as a classic site. Third-party tooling will not modernize pages. I'm not aware of any third-party tools that can actually do this. So I think that's a key differentiator, that this focuses on a piece of a functionality that's kind of not available by third-party tools at all.
Yep. Yeah. And now, is this only for SharePoint Online, not for SharePoint 2019?
Good question. I was expecting that one actually. Currently online only, but if you're a 2019 user, I think you are interested in using modern UI, then you need this kind of tooling as well. Currently it doesn't work, but it's on our radar for later on.
Cool. Okay, that's absolutely, we need to create information, and just to recap also the modernization tooling and how powerful that is. Now, let's move on topics. I think we have some Warhorse stories waiting for us from Chris, right, Chris? And for those who do not know what is a warhorse, you should explain what are we referring to. But I think it's pretty obvious when you go to your screen in this case as well. So.
Yeah, it should be. See here. Get my screen here just a second. Okay, just let me know when you guys can see all this beautiful stuff. By beautiful stuff, I of course mean my face. You guys see it? Anybody?
Not yet. Not yet. Wait for it. And I got it as well. So, and all
right, there we go. Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Chris Kent. That's my stuff. All right, let's move on. Let's take a look at some of the stuff we got today. So, got some really exciting stuff to share with you guys. So I was doing some snooping around in the column formatting, list formatting stuff, the code there, because it is JavaScript, and anybody can do that. And I found some new things I wanted to show you because we can do some pretty cool stuff. So over here we got our Warrior Horses site, right? So those are horses that are warriors. I hope that makes that obvious. And of course they use SharePoint to help manage things. And here they're managing their agents. So they've got a variety of agents around the world, right, doing very important Warrior Horses business. And they want to spruce this list up a little bit, right? So they've got a nice little picture of the horse, but they want to do some more things here. So they've got their phone number, what they like to drink, and their status currently, right? So let's take a look at what we can do. So before we get to that, let's take a look at some of the new operations, right, or operators out here. So if we format this column, we're going to use that. We're just going to type this in ourselves. So we're going to say elm type is div, right? We're going to add a comma. And we're going to say text content equals, and this is the new one, so index of. This is a super powerful thing. So I'm going to give it the title column. All right, so if I'm looking at the title column, and I'm looking for, say, the letter R, lowercase r, and let's just run that. Let's close this thing up. Let's preview that. You'll notice here we get the actual index inside the title column, which is code name in this case. I've renamed that. That's helpful. So you can see right here, this one says number 4 because right there it's a zero-based index. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 is the R. And you set all the way down here. And that's great that we can see that it's a 4, but what really helps is we see things like -1, right? There is no R here. So you get a negative. Is anyone else getting a ton of static, or is that me? No? All right, great.
There's some, okay. Yeah, I'll double check if you can clean it. So.
Okay. It's gone. Perfect. Okay. All right, so -1 means it's not found, and that's super helpful. Even better is when we do like capital A, or we can see 0, so we can see what it starts with. So a -1. That is extremely helpful. So we're going to see how we use that in just a minute. So that's index of. So what you do is you provide what you want to look inside of, and what you're searching for, and it'll tell you whether it's in there or not. Okay? So now let's take a look at another one here. Let's do 2 lowercase. This one should be pretty obvious. So 2 lowercase. All right? We'll get rid of the second parameter. It's just one parameter. We're going to pass in title. I'm going to preview that. It just takes whatever that is and makes it lowercase. Pretty exciting stuff. All right, let's take a look at another new one, and that is join. So join, you might not realize it, but some of these things are arrays behind the scenes, right? So in this case, our drink preference is a multi-select choice column, right? So I can choose multiple things here. What if I wanted to put those all together, right? So by default, if I don't apply any formatting, with a multi-choice, I get a comma and a space. If it's a person field, they actually go on new lines, right? If I do any kind of formatting with them, I lose the space. In a person field, you get a semicolon. What if you want to control that? Well, that's where you provide your array right here, and then you're going to put in whatever your separator is. So if I wanted to put an ampersand in there, all right, we'll preview that. There we go. So we get this nice way to really control what goes on there, all right? Oh, that's a good point, EC. That's a good point. Let's see what we can do. Last one I want to show you, though, is, because I think it's a little misleading, is length. So you would think length would be like an len function, right? So give us our string length. But it's actually designed for arrays. So it tells us how many items are in an array, right? So if we preview that, we can see that there were 5 choices here, 2 choices here, and so on. Right? But if we tried to do that with a string, like we'll put back in title, you're always going to get a 1 if that string is present. If the object is not there, you're going to get a 0. So it's a little misleading. So be careful with the length function. I'm not actually going to demo a sample of that because I really haven't found a great use for it yet. All right. Now let's actually take a look at what can we do with this information, right? So I want to look at that starts with, right? So the whole idea of an index of, where it becomes 0. So there is not currently a way to just see string length. Sorry. Hopefully that wouldn't be hard to implement that, so we'll see. Let's put a user voice in on that one. All right, so let's do a starts with. So we've got several new samples for you. I think I added 5 or 6 the other day. So here's one for starting with. All right, so this is in our SBDev list formatting repo under column samples. Text starts with calling codes. Very catchy name. Super readers remember. All we're going to do is we're going to grab this. So again, with the list formatting samples, you don't have to do any kind of crazy get stuff. You just copy and paste this stuff. So I'm going to copy it. So what I'm looking at is this phone number here. That's great. I've got the international calling code because we are citizens of the world, right? But what if I want to do, I want to actually understand who am I calling, where are they, right? So I can come in here and I can format this column. And if we take a look at this format, all I'm doing is that index of right here. I'm saying current field and I'm looking for the calling code for their country. And this is for the tooltip. I'm actually putting that in. So you can see all this goes and I'm just nesting those conditions. So you got a bunch of closing parentheses at the end here, right? So it's just, if it's 358, that's Finland, right? Else, check if it's Australia, and so on and so on, right? And then we're going to build a flag up top here. So if we take a look at that, bam! Look at that. Now, we can extend that further if we need to, right, to get all the countries of the world in here. But pretty easily, we're able to extract just a portion of that value. If we tried to do, a traditional way of doing that, which would be basically a giant switch statement where we looked at every possible phone number, that'd be impossible to write as a format. But by using starts with, we can do some really powerful stuff. So let's save that one and move on. What about contains? So what if we want to see, we've got a few of these are dead, right? US dude is dead, and that's very sad. But we want to make sure we highlight that, call that out so we don't end up calling them and it's an awkward conversation. I mean, horses don't really talk on the phone very well anyway. All right, so we've got here is we've got our contains. So text contains. All right, and we're going to grab this. We're just going to grab this guy. And it's important to note here that we're not just doing an index is not equal to -1. So it's basically we're reversing that. So let's actually grab a version of that over here that you guys can't see. Magic. All right, paste it here. So what I'm doing here is I'm looking for the index of inside the current field. I'm looking for the word dead. And I'm saying not equal to -1. So in other words, it has it. Somewhere inside there, it has the word dead, and I'm going to turn it red. But what's important to note is this one down here, because it has a capital D, doesn't show up. So index of is case sensitive. So all you have to do is wrap this in 2 lowercase. All right, we'll wrap that around our current field for dead, and we preview that. Bam! Now it works. Okay? All right, so you can start to see this gets really, really powerful when you can start to highlight things. You can apply that as a row format if I wanted to highlight the whole row based on that. Now, what about this? So one of the things that annoys me about multi-select choice columns or multi-select people fields is the order you pick them matters, right? You'll see that some of these are slightly out of order. Depending on how you do this, it gets a little weird. This is hard to read in any aggregate way, right? Individual list items, that's great. Well, let's take a look at this one. So all I'm doing with this sample are multi-choice icons. Let me grab all this. I'm just doing the same thing over and over. Let's take a look at one of them. We're looking for an icon, and all we're doing is we always put out the icon, and then we check to see, we do a join first, right, to make it into a string, because you can't do an index of on an array. We join it first, and then we look for it, does it have one of our choices? And if it does, so not equal to -1, we apply a theme color based on that. So let's take a look. Format this column. We're going to go to advanced mode. I'm going to paste that in here, preview that. So you start to see, now we can really see what's happening here. So now I can easily see who here actually drinks water and who's into the beer, right? And so on and so forth. All right, that's it. That's our horse formatting tips for you. Oh, wait. One last thing, here's some resources here. So as a reminder, this is what they're for. The documentation for this is not yet approved, but once it is, you'll see it. So it has been submitted. So that's over here, right there. So you can see we've got examples of all these operators and how to use them. So that is coming soon. As soon as that PR gets approved, you can see how to do all that. All right. Let's take a look. And then lastly, here's some resources. There are also samples related to multi-select person fields. So check those out as well. But all of those samples are here. There's a ton of stuff in there. We just added a bunch of new ones. And then there are blog posts if you want to see a little more in-depth on any of these things. Those are all here as well. Okay, that's it for me.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris, on that one. So let's actually jump directly to Chaks. So no point me showing the demo slide on this one. Thank you. Awesome demo. It's great to see that the capabilities with list formatting is really, really powerful. It's good stuff.
Can you hear me better?
Yep, I can hear you, Chaks. All good. Let's see that we can get your slides. And screen is visible for me. So let's move to another demo then. Excellent.
Excellent. So today we're going to see something really different. We're going to be talking about how we can use Visio, which one of the ways many SharePoint business users use Visio to build a SharePoint workflow. So this is taking that next step where we are integrating with the Microsoft Flow, which is the new workflow platform for the SharePoint. So basically what we're doing here is we have something called business process modeling and notation. So that's what business users use as one of the ways to graphically represent the business process, right? So you put all of the if conditions and gateways and whatnot. And then how does that transform to a flow? And that's exactly what Visio helps business users. Once they have the diagram, once they have the process, they can give it to the expert that can build, now annotate the different events and flows and message sequences and map it to flow, and then basically create the flow from there. So that's exactly what we're going to see today. And I'll be taking something from scratch and something also that you can go to Visio and basically start from a template. So I'm going to go to my Visio here. Here's the completed step. So this is what my business process looks like. I start with a SharePoint trigger. And if you hover the icon, you can see that this is about a trigger that basically covers when a file is created. And then I submit the document for approval. And you can see here I have set content approval status action. And then I have a business process, which indicates, the icon indicates here clearly that this is a business process. And I have my approval task that basically starts the approval in the flow. And then I have my conditions. If approved, I set the document status to approved, or I set the document status to rejected, and then send an email. Now, all I have to do to export this is basically click the export button, and that's going to give me the flow dialog to basically sign in and make sure that I check all my connections, and then hit create to go create the flow. So before we do that, I'm going to show you how I arrived to this place to actually annotate all of these events to the flow. So here's the business process diagram without any flow integration, right? So this is how I would get from my business user or business analyst, hey, here's the process. So under the process tab in Visio, I have the option prepare to export. So that basically gets my diagram ready. So now I can assign different triggers and actions to my flow. So for example, I can select the start event, and automatically I get the option to choose the trigger and action. Now I can see that I can filter by connectors. So I'm going to go to SharePoint, and I can see when a file is created in a folder, when a file is created or modified, and here's my when a file is created or when a file is created trigger. So I get that. And now I can switch to the next action here, and I can basically use my set content approval status, and then go over here, find the approval connector, so I can click more. And where is approval? So I can search, and hopefully I'll get here. There we go. And then I can say create start and wait for an approval. So that's done. And then over here, it's a condition, but now I can select the connector. So basically, we can say 849 is going to be yes, and then 825 is going to be no. So now I've selected my condition route, and so I'll probably just switch that because I have, there you go. So when the document status is approved, I'm going to go again to my SharePoint connector and use set content approval status, because with that I can set the approval status. Same here, document approval status, and then finally send an email. So here I'm going to go select Outlook, and then I'm going to say send an email, send an email. That's pretty much it. So that gives my BPMN diagram a good representation of what it should look like when I export this to Flow. So one thing, if you notice here, I'm not really setting any properties. I'm just assigning and annotating basically the mapping of which flow, action, and trigger. So now if I do, it basically says there are some issues. So let's go look at what the issues are. Document detected, and here I basically cannot have any special characters. So there you go. It's really easy to go check and make sure that your flows are working the right way, or the BPM is working the right way. So now I can say here, let the name flow document approval. So I'm going to sign in. I'm going to create the flow. And now that is going to create the flow and give me a link to my Microsoft Flow portal, and it takes me directly to that flow. And remember, now it has only created the skeleton. So as a business process owner and expert in Flow, I would have to click edit and now map it to every whatever the parameters are, right? So when a document is added, so you can see the whatever text I put in my Visio diagram has basically transformed into the flow action title and trigger title. So now I can go and finish this off and basically save the flow, and it's ready, right? So it's really simple. I can architect my process in Visio. I can visually represent them using a business process notation that many of the business users are aware of, and then give it to the flow expert. And basically now I have my flow everything in Microsoft Flow website. So it's really cool. So that's how easy it is to now create and annotate your BPMN diagrams with the flow markup. So quickly, if you want to get access, this is available for Microsoft Visio Plan 2 subscription. Obviously, this is something in an extra subscription that you would have to have. And if you are part of the Office Insiders channel, this feature is available from build 11231. Whatever the suffix is onwards. So that's something to keep in mind if you really want to get hands-on with your with this feature. Now, if you do have feedback, we also have the PM here in our call, Shilpa Goyal. So any questions that you have, we can certainly take up here and answer here as well. Or you can send us email. Tellvisio@microsoft.com. I have links to the support article. It's really easy to remember. AKA MS Visio Flow, and then video is MS Visio Flow Video. Now, one of the cool things I want to show is once you have this diagram, you might want to share this with different folks. So the export options are really cool. So you can now export to Word. That basically what it does is it takes every process and then it creates a document that not only helps business users or the flow experts, but also the business users as well to look at how this document works with the business process annotation that they came up with. So you can see here the document title. I have the exported from link. I have the overview and then the detailed view going through every step and flow and action. So it's really cool. This helps in an easy way if you built the flow to immediately export and send to your business owner to say, hey, this is what I've come up with, and let me know if there is anything that I want to do. And also, if you want to make this into PowerPoint, that's also really easy. So I can go export, create presentation. It's going to ask me, I want to create a snippet, so I can basically add a snippet for, let's say, over here until I start the approval process. I add another snippet. From there, what the condition is. And now I can export, and that's going to come up with my PowerPoint presentation, where it's going to give me the option to explain what this is about with the appropriate the sections that I did in my Visio diagram. So it's very powerful. It's really, really getting great at what it can do, especially with the progress that we have seen internally. So going forward, we have several roadmap items in the backlog. Of course, you want to make this really simple, so you can also specify which SharePoint site, all of the properties in the Visio diagram itself. So then when we export, you have those automatically there, so you don't have to edit the flow and input them. As well as the ability from the flow, if you see here, you can create, just to this. So you can create from Visio diagram from your flow website, as well as you can also export the flow as a Visio diagram from the flow website. So those options are all coming, but right now this is something that we have in the Office Insiders channel. So if you do have Visio Plan 2, make sure that you are joined in the Office Insiders channel and have a hands-on experience on this, and tell us your feedback, what you like, what you don't like, or what you want to see. And if you have companies with SharePoint Designer workflow in Visio that want to move and you want to work with us to get that going as well, send us an email and tell visio@microsoft.com, and we'll be more than happy to work with the customer and understand what are their requirements and making sure they get the right tools in the product. That's me, Vesa.
Excellent, thank you, Chaks. That is insanely cool stuff, and the exporting capabilities to Word is really cool that you're able to set the sections and everything else. So really, really cool stuff. Now, let's actually start moving directly to AC's computer. So AC is taking over for the getting started with GitHub and the community contributions. But thank you, Chaks. Brilliant stuff, and good discussion actually in the entire window as well. So thank you, Shilpa, for joining on the call and helping with the questions as well. Now, because we are on a deadline and we want to have one more demo and a relatively, well, not a long capability demo, rather how to do stuff in practice in GitHub, let's actually jump directly on AC, and you'll do the intros and explain what are about the show. So mastering warrior horse bedding and head capping. What?
Okay, at least you know. Okay, so my slides are being shared. That's good. That worked. All right,
yes,
cool.
Yes. So we can see what you're sharing. Cool. Take it away.
All right. Cool. Thanks. So hey everybody, this is Andrew Connell. This is going to be a bit of a different demo that we've done in the past, and it's because we've gotten a lot of questions, or we've seen a lot of different maybe confusions, maybe not questions that have been asked. Sometimes we see questions that we kind of wish had been asked. And so my goal today is to run through and show you, kind of walk through, like, how do you go about getting help? How do you go about submitting questions or filing bugs or even contributing back to the community? There's a couple things I want to cover here, but before we get started, just let me say one thing just to keep in mind. I do not work for Microsoft. Some of the things that I'm going to say may not be the exact same thing that they would want to say. I'm a community contribution person, as are most of the people who are working in the GitHub issue list in the SP Dev Docs issue list. Most of the people you'll see there are community, if I can say this, community contributors. And so they're doing this in their own time. This is not part of their day job. And I think that it's one of the things that it's not 81, it's 71 right now, that I want you just to keep in mind when you're going through and submitting these issues. So let me kind of run through some of this. Now I'm gonna try to avoid watching anything in the chat because we want to make sure that we have a good solid demo of this stuff, that we can take this video and we can post it on the YouTube channel for everybody else to take a look at here. First of all, so let's say, for example, that you've got an issue, you've got a question. So the best place to go these days for SharePoint development questions is the SP Dev Docs issue list, or the SP Dev Docs repository. So that's where I am right here in the SharePoint/SP Dev Docs. And if I go to the issues list, you'll see a whole slew of a bunch of issues that are all posted here. So let's see how to go about creating an issue. So when I go and click new issue here, what we've done is we've set up a template here for what the issue would look like when you first go to create it. And there's a bunch of stuff that's already here. But if you take a second to read what's here, you're going to notice that a lot of stuff, you really don't want to, you're not going to want to keep this stuff here. In fact, we have a lot of explanations here that even say, delete this paragraph after you read it. And this is not delete this paragraph for the person you're submitting it to. This is you as the one that's submitting the issue. So we just give you a little bit of information here. If you want to make an easier way to see this, up here at the top, if you click on preview, this gives you a really good idea of what things you should be getting rid of. Really anything in block quote, that's the stuff that you should delete. So here, this is just a little bit of, hey, thanks for doing this. Second of all, here's an explanation on how to use these checkboxes. Now, we see this all the time. And so this is going to be one of those things that once you see how it works, you're like, oh my God, this is so easy. The idea here is that we have this checkbox list of the different types of questions or issues that you could be submitting, either a question, a typo, a bug, etc. And it even says what you're supposed to do. Now check this out. If you go in here, most people are just putting an X inside of these boxes here, thinking that that's what these instructions are saying, but they're not. They're saying that if you go put an X in and remove the space that's there, so instead of having a space like you see here, I'm just replacing it with an X. When you do that, check it out. It makes a little checkbox right here. If you don't do that, and if you end up just putting an X in like that, well, if you do that, it gets rendered out all funky. So don't do that. Be a good community contributor and get rid of the space. And you may wonder, well, then why don't you guys just don't put the spaces in there initially? It's like, well, because things get all funky on the rendering as well. So you put a space in there when you don't want it checked. You put an X in there when you do want it checked. So that's step one. And it even tells you that in the instructions. So once I figured that out, I come over here and I blow this paragraph away. I don't need it. Same thing with this one. I blow it away. I don't need it. The expected or desired behavior. If you're doing something and it didn't work the way that you thought it was supposed to work or the way the documentation says it's supposed to work, say that. If it's a bug, tell us what you expect to see happen or a picture that you'd expect to see happen. And then tell us what happened. That's what the observed behavior is. When you start going through to start submitting these different issues, there's a couple things I want you to think about. First of all, most people who are helping you, as I already talked about, these people are already are community contributors. We're doing this on our own time. So you want to keep in mind that, hey, these people that I'm asking questions to, and probably 90% of people that are going to respond to me are doing this off the clock. They're not getting paid for this. So when you post an issue, be respectful. The more information that you can share with us, the better the information that you can share with us, the easier it is to help you. And thus, the people who are helping are probably more motivated to jump in and to give you a hand. Posting an issue that's like, this is so stupid, this thing doesn't work, me personally, I'm going to scroll right past that. I'm not even going to try and help you because you apparently don't even respect my time. So I think other people feel the same way. And that's what I'm kind of saying. Microsoft probably wouldn't say that, but just think about how people are going to be taking your question here. Let me show you a couple examples, and I'm going to apologize right off the bat because I'm going to be calling out a couple issues here. But let me show you what a bad issue looks like. Here's a bad issue, right? This is one that was submitted. It just says I'm getting this access is this error here, and then I'm saying I'm going to get their name off of it so that we don't see that. Well, I guess that's not going to work. They post their error right here. They show a picture, just say somebody please help, but then look at this. We have all this additional stuff that's still here, and we've got to scroll through this and see, well, we had all these sections here for a reason, and no one even took it, paid any attention to it, and then didn't delete any of these paragraphs. Please don't do that. Here's another one that I've got that I'm going to show off here. This one came in, this one we got the other day. This one, the problem is just in the title. They took the time to actually get the checkbox right, but then they didn't do anything else with any of this other stuff. That's not a good issue. Come on, people. This is so simple. Here's a good issue. This is an issue by Alex that Alex posted. Check this out. He's got a question and potentially a bug. So he's checked things off the right way. He got rid of all the extra junk that we have there for the helper stuff. He also went through in the observed behavior. He went through and put, this is what I expect to see. This is what happened. See, notice how his code is being formatted? Let me show you how he's doing that. Now, I'm going to be able to do this because I've got edit rights on the repo, but check out what he did. He did this concept called code fencing, and you're using these little backticks. That's the key or the character just, at least on a US keyboard, it's in the top left of your keyboard. It's above the tab or next to the 1 key. And so you got 3 of those backticks followed by the language that you're using. So it could be JavaScript or JS or TS or CS or CSS, whatever. That is formatting it. It makes it a heck of a lot easier to read his code instead of just pasting stuff in. PowerShell, you can do it too. Just put PS will do it, or I think Posh will do it as well. Now, one of the things you're also going to see in these issues that we're going to have is that you'll see that we have all these little labels that are showing up, and this has changed a lot recently. How do you know what these different labels do? Well, if you come over here to labels, you'll see here's a list of all the labels. Now, I'm going in and I'm trying to add in some documentation to what these things are. And if I jump over here to the next one, you'll see that there's a lot of documentation for some of these ones that are here. There's a couple of ones to highlight that I want to point out here. If you submit a request for a new feature or for something to change, we're probably going to close your issue pretty quick, but we're going to tag it as a user voice request because requests for new features don't go in the issue list. They go in the user voice place, in the user voice site, and the link for it is right there. We've got these other ones here for the status that you can see where things are. If someone's asked a question, we've answered it. We'll say that. If something is working the way it's supposed to, we'll say that. If there's an issue that has been acknowledged by Microsoft, but we don't have a timeline on when it's going to get released, we put working on it on there. And then if we know when it's going to get released, we'll say it's fixed in the next drop, or we'll say it's fixed and then we'll close it. Now, there's one that I do want to highlight here that people are noticing is coming up a lot more, so that you're aware of what this is. So these purple ones, what happens? When an issue is created, we have a bot that's watching the issue list. And when a new issue is submitted to the issue list, it's automatically going to get tagged with triage. And that's effectively telling those of us who have the ability to edit stuff in the list, in this issues list, to say, we need to take a look at this. This is a new issue that was submitted. We will remove that once it's been triaged and we've either categorized it or we've gotten some sort of action that's been set on it. Now, another one that you may have seen is this author feedback and attention. Now, the way this works is that when you submit an issue and then we respond to you and we are waiting for you to come back and respond to us, we tag it with author feedback. Now, what that does is that starts a timer, and it goes for 7 days, and it waits to see if the original poster, not anybody, but the original poster, the one that created the issue, if they respond. And if they do respond, it will take that issue off, or it will take that label off, the author feedback off, and it will replace it with attention, and that timer just stops. Now, the next kind of thing that may happen is, what if the person never responds? Well, after 7 days, you'll see a new tag get added. Let's see, where is it? It's on the next page. You'll see a new tag get added for no recent activity. And what that is saying is the bot's looking at it and saying, hey, if this person hasn't responded in 7 days, we're going to consider this issue stale, and we're going to tag it as no recent activity. If they continue to be unresponsive for another 7 days, we're going to automatically close the issue. Now, that's the bot doing it. We can always reopen it. Maybe somebody got sick. Maybe somebody couldn't get back to them. That's fine. But we're trying to make it so we don't have these outstanding things that are just sitting around. And if you opened an issue up a year ago or 2 years ago, you're going to see me, at least I'm doing a lot of this now. I'm going through all the old issues where people have posted like, hey, this isn't working. And if you were using an old version of the SharePoint framework, like 1.4 or 1.3, I'm going to flag it as, hey, is this still an issue? Because we've had a lot of updates since then, and this may have already gotten fixed. And so it'll be flagged as it needs author feedback. And if you don't do anything, it's just going to get closed. All right, so the next thing is, well, how do I go through and make contributions to this? And I'm going to try and do this as quick as I can in 10 minutes, but we'll see how well I can do with this. So I've gone through and I found a couple different issues an issue that I know that I can fix pretty quick here. So let me open that guy up. So this is issue number 3378, and this is a broken link. And so it's saying here, if you go to this page right here, so I go to that page, and I do a find for this text right here, context definition. I'm looking for a link here that's broken. I go click on this link, and blammo, sure, it doesn't work because it's going to msdnmicrosoft.com. Now, if I back up, I'll see that there it is right there. There's the or is it context context definition? Oh, I had it earlier. Where is it? It's actually, well, here I cheated a little bit. Come on, go to my link that I have here. Here's where it should be pointing to. It should be pointing to this link. So let's go fix that. So what I'm going to do is I've got this issue right here, was 3378. So let me go over to the issue list, or let me go to the repository, which is this repository right here. Got too many things open. Let me close some of these tabs so I can keep track of where I am. Okay. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click fork. And what that's going to do is that's going to create a copy of this repository in my GitHub account. So if I come over here to SP Dev Docs, apologies for the ugly picture. If I come over here, you can see that this is forked. Now, I notice in this case that it shows that my fork is 18 commits behind what we call upstream, the Microsoft one that's at SharePoint, right? My master branch is 18 commits behind their master, and that's not good. You should never be making any changes to the master branch. Treat that as read-only. You should also make sure that your master branch is as current as it can possibly be. So how do I do that? So I'm going to jump over here to my command prompt. And I'm going to show you a little trick that I do. So I've gone through and, let's see, go to cd repos ac sp dev docs. Okay, so let's get check out. Let's jump over to the master branch. Now, this may go kind of quick for you because I'm kind of short on time, but just understand conceptually what it is, and there's tons of documentation that shows you how to do this. Conceptually, what I have to do, think about this as 3 levels of a Git repository. At the very top is your grandparent. That grandparent, that's the Microsoft repository. That's the one that we want to make a change to. The next step down is your parent. That's my fork of that same repository in GitHub. And then the child is the one I'm currently on. That's the clone of my fork on my laptop. So what I need to do is I need to refresh my local, my fork. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to, what's referred to as I'm going to refresh it from upstream. Upstream is the name. If I do git remote -v, you see that I have a remote called upstream that I have added to my local repository, and where I am, or my local copy, my clone of my fork, and I've called it upstream, and I'm pointing to the SharePoint repository, not my fork of it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say git fetch upstream, and this is effectively saying go download all the data from the SharePoint repository. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say I want to pull in, I'm going to do a rebase, and that basically says take my existing branch that I'm on, which is master, rebase it off of upstream's master branch. And what that's going to do is that's going to take all the changes from the one up from Microsoft, and I'm going to push that stuff into my repository, and then I'm going to say git push. This shows me that I just had a bunch of additional things that were added to my local fork. So now that I do that push, if I do a refresh, now you can see my fork is now even with master. So now I'm current. I can get going with this. So now let me jump back over to the project here. Let's go fix that problem that we have, that document. So let me find where that broken link was. That broken link is in docs schema declarative context definition group elements. Let's see if I can remember that. Docs, I already forgot it. Docs schema declarative context, docs schema declarative which one? Declarative definition group, context definition group, declarative context definition group element. Is that right? Element extensions. Yeah, okay, long thing there. All right, so we're looking for a link, and we're looking for the link for this word context definition. So let's find context definition. Where's our link? Scrolling down, let's find, it's not, there it is, there's that MSDN link. So let's grab the correct link, which is right here, and let's paste that in. We'll save our changes. Now that I've saved my changes with this, and of course you can use your own, Git tooling that you want to use for all this stuff. I'm doing everything command line to be very explicit. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say git add the new, or git status. This will show me that, not status. This will show me that there's one file that's being changed. I strongly recommend you should only have one commit per thing you're fixing. Make things atomic. One commit per issue that you're fixing. So I'm going to say git add everything that I have, and then do a git commit, and I'm going to give it a nice descriptive message here. I'm going to say doc fix. Oh, no, sorry, we screwed that up. Let's go git checkout and then I'm going to do a doc fix. And what is this? This is issue number 3378. Is that right? Got ahead of myself here. Okay, so why am I doing this? The reason I'm doing this is that I should never be making changes on master. I broke my own rule. So I just jumped back over to created a new branch, set this up. I'm going to say now git commit. What am I doing? This is a documentation fix for issue 3378. And then I'll come down here and I'll say this fixes number 3378. Now, if you do it like that, if you actually say fixes and put the number there, when this issue gets committed, it's going to automatically close the associated item. So now I'm going to say git push. It's going to say, hey, you don't have that in your upstream or in your up in your origin. And I'll say no problem. Now I'll go ahead and push it in. So that's what that just did. That last command I did is that's creating a brand new branch. There we go. So just create that brand new branch right here with that one change. So I can now say compare and do a pull request. I'm going to take this branch from my fork and push it to the SharePoint repository, his master branch. And I can just say fixing broken link from issue 3378. And again, I can see where it says fixes. I'm just going to clean this up a bit and I'll move it down here. Again, there's a lot of explanation on how to do this. I'm doing it like that. And I'm also going to say like this. It fixes 3378 and this is a content fix, right? Now, when I do that, I can preview what I did, but check this out. There's a cool little thing you can do with this. I'm going to say pull request, create a pull request. Now that's going to go through this whole process of being checked here by Microsoft to make sure that this is cool, and that's when Microsoft is going to look at this stuff. But check this out. When this PR gets merged, if I hover over this, notice it says it will automatically close 3378. And if I go over to the actual issue, you can see it's even linking my PR over here. That's really important. Now, the one thing to keep in mind is if you're going to be doing multiple, if for some reason you have a PR that actually fixes multiple issues, you need to say fixes issue. And then, so you have to go like this. You'd say fixes issue like that. And then I would do fixes issue 39 and then 79 and 80. You have to do fixes for each one of them like that. You can say fixes, you can say close, whatever you want to say, but you have to, each one individually has to do that. And when you say it like that, what that will do is that then when Vesa or whomever comes around and merges this PR in, it'll automatically get flushed right on in there and we'll be all in good shape. So the big things to keep in mind here, always make sure that your fork is current, or at least his master branch is current with the Microsoft upstream one. That's a big thing. If it's not, oh, look at that. Thanks, Vesa. You just merged it. That was awesome. So Vesa just went ahead and merged it. Now check this out. Let's go to the issue and see if it closed it. Ta-da. Boom. Automatically closed. And it was closed because Vesa did it. Thank you very much. Pretty cool, right? And see how nice they didn't have to do anything. We just closed an issue for us. So it's really easy to contribute this stuff. If you have a question, ask a question about this stuff. We'll have this posted. If you want, I'll actually try to write up a doc on this if you think it's helpful, and we'll put it in the wiki on how to contribute and stuff and how to keep your Git repository nice and clean. So cool. That's all I've got, Vesa. I actually have a lot more, but we'll go ahead and stop there since I see it's right at the top of the hour.
Yeah, we chatted too long in the start again. That's on me. But that was insanely beneficial as well. So thank you, AC, for that one. So I think it went through the basic steps on the GitHub handling, and there was a good discussion in iWindow as well related on the GitHub practices. Now, that was it for today's demos. We are on the hour, or 1 minute on top of it. We are trying to, in the future, in all of these calls, to have time for Q&A. Once again, we clearly had one too many of the demos in this call, so we're trying to balance that out in the upcoming calls, so that there's always time for Q&A in these things. Now, please use the community channels for asking your questions, getting support from your peer people in the community, because the power of the community is the scalability. The reality is that Microsoft simply do not have as many people answering your questions as they would be the people who are using our software. So having answers from the other people in the community and acting politely towards those people will help, because you will get answers to your questions faster. But thank you everybody for this one. The next SharePoint Dev community call, SharePoint Dev special interest group call is on February 21st. The next SharePoint Framework special interest group call is on 14th of February. And we actually do have a monthly community call on 12th of February as well, so next Tuesday. On the monthly community call, we can actually show and deep dive really on the provisioning service, which will help you to set up cool looking modern sites. So we'll show that one in practice, and that's going to go live relatively soon. We're going to talk about some branding topics and all of that. You will see the agenda announcements related on the monthly community call in the social media later today. But thank you everybody for joining this. Thank you for a really nice discussion, a lively discussion in the iWindow. That is really one of the powers of this call. The video recording will be available in the YouTube channel again within 24 hours, and early next week we'll have the individual demo videos stripped down from the overall recording. Thank you, AC, one more time. Thank you, Chaks, who had to leave already, and thank you, Chris, for the great demos. And I need to also jump to another call. Have a great weekend, and we'll be absolutely in touch. Bye-bye.